Joey, what's up, my man? Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
The
I'm
Alpha
honored.
5 podcast. You ever think you'd make it to this point?
No, I mean, when you're a young kid, what do you dream of? Alpha
The
5,
Alpha
you know?
Alpha 5, baby. Man, you and I are so close, and that's why I wanted you to get on today to share your story. But I'm still trying to remember if it's true. You got held up at gunpoint in the
Yeah,
city of Pittsburgh trying to go get more drugs.
yeah, yeah. And even at that point when that happened, and I left the situation, I didn't I went back to still get it. Like I didn't leave.
Like that didn't scare you off.
No, I mean it scared me, but not enough to not go get what I was there for. And it's just shows the depths of how bad addiction can be and how uh how people really need that to move forward, or at least they think they need it.
Well, we're gonna jump into your whole story, brother. It's a good one. So thanks for joining us, and we'll get to it. Hey, I'm Bruce Gradkowski, founder of the Alpha 5 Method. We're going to be talking to some of my friends, former NFL players, other high achievers, entrepreneurs, people that have beat cancer. Those are the kind of people you're going to be hearing from on the Alpha 5 Method podcast.
I like
I'll
the
tell you what,
intro.
you like that?
Yeah.
So it happens when you spend a little money, you know? I mean, I know you don't know what it's like to spend money. You forget
No.
your wallet every time we go out to eat.
Yeah, really. I mean, hey, you made a couple bucks playing in the NFL. I like to think I helped you get there from what I did in high school. I mean, you and
Absolutely.
I made USA Today. Do you remember that? Coach Lou called us in. We were in USA Today against Beth Center. So if I'm not catching passes, you're
Well,
playing at
you did
teal.
though. You played a pivotal role. You were my big star receiver and running back in high school, middle linebacker, safety. You played every position, but you were a freshman when I was a junior, right, or
Yeah,
sophomore? Yeah,
yeah.
junior. But yeah. How big are you? Being my big wide receiver? How tall are you?
In the program those years, I think I went from like 5'10", 5'11" to 6 foot, but 5'8" on a good
Five
day
eight.
with my shoes on.
How awesome is it though? Tell this story. When you would get recruited, uh, and you wanted to measure taller, because you're legit 5'8". Like that's
Yeah,
not a lot.
I'm gonna
But
take
how
my
did you
vest
get
off.
past getting through some of these recruiting visits?
Well, my dad, I think honestly, I left this item in your Jeep, your old blue Jeep with the tinted windows. But my dad in Toledo was the first camp. He bought me heel lifts to stick into my shoes. It was probably like an inch and a half heel lifts, so that when I would go to camps or coaches would come in, I would look taller than I was. And I go to Toledo and they're like, "Hey, you got to take your shoes off to get measured." So I'm like scrambling real quick. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And my dad's like, put them in your socks. So I had to take these heel lifts out, stick them in my socks, and get measured. And, you know, it was
the
crazy.
the price you pay to try to get a Division I scholarship, and we'll get to that because you had zero coming out of high school. You were
Hmm.
all state, broke all kind of records, 4-year starter in high school. So I want to get to that, but tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you're up to now, but where you came from and all that. Besides
Yeah,
eating spaghetti and meatballs as a kid.
I know, right? Every week. So, yeah, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Grew up in a little borough, Dormont, right outside the city. All of us, the 17 cousins, big Italian family. Um, so right now I have three daughters, 6, 5, and 2. Aria is the oldest, Mia and Tessa. And, my wife, Jacqueline, coaches basketball. So staying involved in sports that way. But yeah, I'm in sales back here in Pittsburgh now. I go out, I do some speaking at local high schools, colleges, um, about my story and kind of some stuff we'll get into as we go on. But yeah, just doing that, still watching the Steelers, watching Panthers, playing a basketball league, trying to stay young and competitive. But
Well, we all have to keep those competitive juices flowing. That's when the game's over. And this is the thing. And honestly, Joey, this is one of the reasons why, like, I came up with the Alpha 5 method, because a lot of times, we get stuck in our careers, whether it's a change of career path, whether it's coming out of high school, whether football ended, you're trying to figure out what's next, or it's just, how do I achieve and get from this point in my life and get to that point,
yeah,
achieve bigger and better things, and achieve those goals, and achieving goals through adversity. That's what it's all about. And I'm building a course right now. A lady with a PhD is helping me. It's a full-blown course. Like, I want to make this as real as possible and as good as possible to give people the information they need to achieve anything they want,
yeah,
and I lived it firsthand, and we grew up together. And I don't think there's much difference between me and other kids I grew up with, but I was fortunate to play 11 years in the NFL. And I think your story is part of that Alpha 5 method, where you overcame some big adversity to achieve a goal that is bigger than anything we could imagine, bigger than money, because now you're the person you are for your family and your girls at home. Um, Unbelievable high school career, football, basketball. You were shaving your beard off as a freshman in high school. That's why you were able to start for us at linebacker and running back. But talk about your accomplishments at Seton LaSalle and Pittsburgh later on in your high school days.
yeah. Um, so as as much as I don't want to do it, I think you have to give a lot of credit to Pep, my dad, Joe Senior, just because as kids he taught us he taught us to want it when we probably didn't even know that we what we wanted and how good we wanted to be. And your
Mhm.
dad the same, all of us. It was like vacations. We're running sand dunes or finding empty fields in the Outer Banks to throw routes, and it's like,
We didn't get
why
a
are
week off.
why are we doing this? Or Christmas morning, my dad would take us to shoot, and it's like, why are we doing this? And it's like, because you need to separate yourself from everybody else, and this is how you get great. So coming in at to Seton, um, you looked at high school kids. I remember looking at TJ, right, as a kid, and I'm like, these guys are my idols. These high school football players.
High school seniors. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get to high school, and I started inside linebacker as a freshman, and I didn't know, you know what it was going to be like. And those guys, Pete and Ralphie and Pia Jesse, all those seniors to me were like grown men. And
Yeah.
I
High school
remember
seniors. Right.
first game at Newcastle, some kid jumps and puts his face mask right in my stomach. And I looked at Nick Perella on the sideline. I'm like, is every game like this? Like, I was dead. And
Yeah.
then you start to build up, and I had a pretty decent freshman year at inside linebacker, some running back, um, and that kind of just built almost a foundation of confidence in myself that, okay, you got to the next step, you got to that next level from grade school where I did well, and you're starting to play with the big boys, and then you get to sophomore year, which was your senior year, and it's more of a pivotal role, moving from
Hmm.
running back where I started to receiver, and you had, uh, RJ Soder and Mike Mason and myself that were kind of the pieces. I mean, we had a lot of guys that were catching passes at that point. And I honestly just tried to keep my head down and work as hard as I could. And one thing that Pep always told me was like, you want to try and embarrass your opponent and the people you're going up against. And it's like, not in the sense of like shame them and laugh at them, but you want to go as hard as you can and just
And
never let
dominate.
up. You don't want to play down to your competition. You want to like have your level and your standards set here and continue to do that all the time. So
Like the
you see,
Steelers have been doing so far this season,
yeah,
playing down to their con.
exactly.
But you're
It's
right. I mean, in Pep being your dad, trying to motivate you to make you, because a lot of times in life, though, we compare ourselves to others where you got to look internally and what's inside of you, because you were a lot more developed than a lot of these kids at a younger age and more athletic, that your dad realized like you shouldn't be just winning, you should
yeah,
be dominating these guys. And that's what you did throughout high school. And now you get to what, your senior year, and you're winning a WPIAL championship in Pittsburgh. But talk
hmm
about that period, your senior year, because didn't an injury happen? Like what happened through those playoffs? I
yeah.
feel like I can recall during that time.
So yeah, so going into my senior year, right? My goal was as soon as I started as a freshman, because I was probably better at basketball, but as soon as I got to the into the starting role as linebacker, I'm like, okay, football is what I'm playing, you know. And then I stopped growing, and I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to play basketball. Um, but my goal was to get a scholarship, and going into my senior year, I didn't have any scholarship offers, and people were telling me like, you got to get faster, you got to get stronger, like you need to win, like your team needs to win. So I went out to Guy Montecalvo. I got down into like the 4.4s in my 40, and now I'm like pumped up and I'm set to have a good senior year. And the second game of the year, I sprained my ankle.
Hmm.
So then I'm like trying to get ready to play, and that's when I turned to pills. And I'm like, let me take these painkillers just to see so I can play. And I go
And
through the seat. Go
what
ahead.
painkillers? So this is week 2, 3 of your senior season.
On my senior season,
So you start now. What painkillers are we talking about? Like, I mean, you is
like
this Tylenol, Advil at first, or
no,
you know?
like Vicodin, like narcotic. So, um, and I didn't know anything about it. I was never like a partier, and
Mhm.
I didn't know anything about it. So I'm just like, well, let me get one of these painkillers, and then I'll be able to play. And then I like that feeling, and I took it before games, and then it was like as the season went on, I started taking it like on a daily basis, and
And pray what, like one pill at this point wasn't enough. Like, how
not
many would you have to take like before a game to
usually
feel good, ready to go?
usually take like 3 or 4 before a
Wow.
game, and it's like you build up a tolerance quick, and then it's like during that playoff run, because we had always lost my first 3 years, like your junior and senior year, and my junior year, we lost in the first round of the playoffs every year.
Thanks for reminding me. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So, well, that's just a humble brag on myself on getting to the Whitfield final. But so we had this game, right? And we're going through all this. Coach Lou's fired up. He throws this videotape, like all the tape was on VHS of all these games losing in the first round. He fires it off the wall. So we go out, win 54-0 the first game. And we're like fired up, like nobody could beat us. And it was that after that game that someone came up to me and was like, hey, because I think rumors at that point had been like surfacing around, small school.
Hmm.
And someone was like, hey, if you try this, it's going to be cheaper and like uh, you'll get more high. And that's when the first time I was offered heroin.
So let me ask you at this point. So you're going through the WPIAL playoffs, your senior year of high school, and we all know how important. I mean, high school, man, high school sports. It's like you don't know that there's anything outside of high school football. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like this is life, and
mm-hmm.
you're trying to get through games and be healthy. It's your senior year. And talk about recruiting. Are you getting recruited at this point or what? Because you're breaking all kinds of records. You're all state. So
And
what's your recruiting like?
So the recruiting at this point was, I had interest from a lot of D1 schools. And the thing was, like, I'm short, right? And I didn't really get looks until, like, I remember going to Toledo camp and I ran a 4.6. I hear
Mm.
nothing. Well, then I go to Monte Calvo and I get my speed down, and like Pitt, I ran a 4.45 at their camp. Well, then they're like, "Oh, let's look at this guy," and they take me around the facility, but nobody ever made that jump to offer me. And Pitt always told me, like, "Hey, if West Virginia offered you, we'd offer you." And Toledo was like, "Hey, if Akron and Buffalo and all these schools offer you, we'd offer
Isn't
you."
that crazy, man? Like
Yeah,
you're either a good football player or you're not. Like
yeah,
and coaches like have the confidence when you see a good player on film to offer him a scholarship. Like
yeah,
it's crazy out there, especially recruiting nowadays and NIL and all that. Like I just for high school athletes, you know, you're working tirelessly to continue to get better. You know, the social media now, everything. I just think we have a QB at Toledo now, wasn't highly recruited, and I'm like, good football player is a good football player. Like I see these
yeah,
high school quarterbacks, I know who's good, who's not. Like if you feel that confident, offer them. So at this point in your career, a lot of interest, West Virginia, Pitt, Toledo. No one's giving you the offer though. You're going through the WIPIO playoffs.
playoffs.
Someone
And
approaches you and says, "Hey, I got something better than what you're taking. It'll give you a better high, and you're a high school kid. This is
yeah,
cheaper."
yeah. So, and that's the thing too. Like, so you get to that point, and like I said, I never partied. Like, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke weed, I didn't do any of that stuff. And I took this pill just because, like, I needed to play, or I felt that I needed to play.
Mhm.
And your mindset shifts. Now all this stuff that was like so bad to me was like, and it was justifying. It is very bad. Obviously, people die from it every day, but it's like I justified it in my mind, like, oh, it's not that bad. And then like with getting into heroin, I'm like, I'll try it just to see what it's like. One time, I'll try it, and that's
So
it.
now is this still pill form,
No, it's
or
like a little powder. It's like in a little bag, and
and how are you taking this at this
you
point?
snort it. I've never
Uh,
injected
See,
myself. Like I feel fortunate. Like and it sounds crazy to say that. Like fortunately, I've never injected,
you
which a lot of people do, and
so
it's
so at this point you're a high school season on heroin
yeah, my senior, like going into like the playoff run,
because the state championship comes. So you guys win the WIPIO championship.
win
You're going to
WIPIOS,
this. You're
state
going to state. So
semis.
so how many pills or how much were you taking? Were you snorting heroin before the WIPIO championship game?
Not before it,
So
not
you were
before it,
still like
and
pill
it was
form.
yeah. Like I'm just saying, like I just didn't happen to do it before the game, and typically I didn't. Like I didn't do that before the game, but it's like after the game,
See,
it fits around, and you know, and it's just crazy because in my mind, it wasn't even in the city of Pittsburgh. It was never around, and then you get exposed to it, and then you start seeing pockets of different thing, and that's why your the people you surround yourself with starts to change, right? And
hmm.
you're like, oh, this kid who I might never talk to before, I'm now calling on a regular basis just to see what's going on, or hanging out at his house or whatever it is. And it's, to
To
me,
what? To get what you need to get the
to get
pills
what you
and
need, but then you're like saying, wow, this kid's cool, and you're
yeah.
just sitting there, and it's just, you go down a totally different road than you were ever, or at least we were ever taught to, or you would think that you would go down.
Well, and I
And
appreciate no, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I just think your story is so important and why you go around high schools and you tell your story now and thankfully you got over, you know, the addiction and we'll talk about, but because you're an advocate for so many out there. Like you're talking high school sports. Like
mm-hmm,
and I put myself back in high school and there was nothing more important to me than football and basketball. Like,
Yeah.
and if I was injured my senior year, you better believe I'm going to find a way to play. And that's what, nowadays there's so much access to content, information, to drugs, to all that. And that's why it's good you're sharing your story. So you're going through the playoffs, your state championship. So now the state championship comes. Like, how are you feeling health wise and to play in that game with your
I
ankle?
mean, the ankle, it was like, it wasn't the same. Like, I was actually, oddly enough, a guy up at Seton sent me all of my film from your senior year to my senior year. And I
Mm-hmm.
was watching like the first two games, and I'm like, man, I was quick. I had a burst. Like, I could change direction. And then once I got hurt, like, it just wasn't as good.
You could tell the
So,
difference.
yeah, so I was still banged up. Like, I wasn't at full speed. Um, but it wasn't like I was running with pain unless something happened in game.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like more honestly just sometimes it become a ritual and just me like be like, all right, well, I did this before last game. Like, let me do this just to make sure it doesn't hurt. Um, and then we get to the state finals and we lose by 5. Um, and
So
it
now what
was,
about
go ahead.
now? Yeah, jump forward now to college and how you
So
got to Pitt. Like,
yeah, so I get to, I decided I was going to Pitt like winter of my senior year of high school, and I decided I was walking on. I had one double A offers, but I'm like, I think I could play at Pitt, you know. So I go down to spring ball, and at this point, somebody said something to me, and I don't want to say his name on here, but someone you and I know. I saw him down at spring ball, and I'm like, he's like, oh, you look skinny, and I didn't think of it, but I'm like, oh, I'm probably like pretty messed up, right?
mm-hmm.
So I honestly like stopped doing drugs, and I'm like, I need to focus on like getting ready for Pitt. I came into Pitt at like 205,
So
and
you're almost like that scared you enough because you wanted that goal to play college football Division 1 so bad that at this point when they said you look skinny, you were like, oh man, I'm not physically fit and ready to play at this level yet. I need
I
to cut this crap out.
yeah, so I like snapped out of it. I was in the weight room with Damon like every day. Like I said, I went into camp at 205, and Walt Harris was like, "What are you doing? You're a receiver, not like a linebacker. You need to cut weight." So I go and I play special teams. I was on my first game I played as a freshman was punt return. We played a small nobody school out of Toledo, Ohio, in the Glass Bowl. We
Tell
were
them
number
who
9.
was your receivers on that team.
Oh, so yeah, Larry Fitzgerald. Um,
So you're playing special teams at this point, and you
I was
guys
playing
coming
punt
to
return.
yeah, you guys coming to Toledo ranked number ninth in the country.
Yeah, and we
And
lose.
we whoop your butt. Yeah, 461 yards. I mean, who's keeping track? But
I mean,
who remembers?
meanwhile, I always say this too. Like, I tell people all the time, like, if they ask about that, I'm like, it was so odd seeing you play on the other team, and we only played together, and
I mean, through
you
high
know,
school, yeah,
through high school. But it's not like we grew up playing together. But still, we were teammates in high school. So
yeah.
I'm like, and I'm only playing special teams. I'm a walk on. I'm like ready to celebrate with Toledo after you guys win. Lance catches that touchdown, and so I'm like ready to run out onto the field and at least see you. And it was like, the whole sad thing with the goalposts and everything happens, but it's like they got us into the locker room as soon as possible. And so I started special teams, and I actually was going to transfer to Akron
Hmm.
after my freshman year. And I was like, I'm not getting a shot. Like, I was told if I was on special teams, I'm going to get a scholarship. If I was the leading receiver in the spring game, or if I was in the mix as a starter in spring, I would get a scholarship. I was a leading receiver, and I remember after the spring game, Walt Harris called me in his office, and I'm like, "This is it! Like, I'm getting a scholarship." And he's like chewed me out for 20 minutes on all these blocking assignments I missed in the run game.
Hmm.
And like then to me, something else clicked, and I'm like, okay, I need to know everything about this. And I started feeling more comfortable with, being a receiver. And then it's like, I need to pay attention to all details of this position. And I worked my butt off. And my sophomore year, I was the only wide receiver to not sit out camp for at least a
Wow.
practice. And it was like 100-degree, and you know how camp is. Like guys are
Right.
banged up, hot days. It was you could still do 2-a-days at that point. And I'm the only guy to not sit out any practices. And before the first game, he like called the team up and gave me the scholarship. And I'm like, dude, just balling,
Oh, so
you
you
know?
go. I mean, look what you've been through. Like your senior year, you get injured, so you're not up to your full potential. But that leads you to starting to pop pills, get on heroin. Now you're kind of in college. You're at Pitt. You're walking on, having a chance. Now, freshman year, Toledo whoops your butt. Sorry. But now sophomore year, you're balling during training camp. They give you a full ride. And then what were your stats through that sophomore year? Wasn't there did you have a top 10 catch against Rutgers?
Yeah. So, well, first, let's not discount anything. On my birthday, we were playing UConn. UConn just went to D1 on Thursday night, and I was on.
I heard,
I was
I heard,
numbers.
I hope Orlowski was a quarterback and you shredded him.
I think he was, and he shredded us. We lost.
Dang.
We, um,
He,
we,
because I broke my hand in the MAC championship game before we played UConn in the bowl game.
yeah,
So I played the first quarter with a broken hand against UConn, trying to play through a broken hand with 3 pins. And after the game, I had to get 6 screws in it because I screwed it up worse. And I'm just still pissed because we never should have lost to Orlovsky in UConn at that point. Like we were better than them with Lance Moore, myself, Trinity Dawson. So I'm sorry, I'm still bitter about
no,
that. But go
yeah,
ahead.
no, it doesn't sound like
UConn.
it. But yeah, so I was number 7 on ESPN's top 10 that day, and we lost. So it's like I feel like a different time where today guys would be like posting that on Instagram or whatever, where it's like
Right.
someone came up to me on the plane and was like, "Hey, you were number 7 on ESPN," and I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Like, I don't really care. I was like pissed that we lost. I was cramping. I got this cramped like electrolytes. I was puking on the plane. So it was just like I don't really care about ESPN. Well, then we play Rutgers like 2 weeks later, and I had one catch that was one-handed, you know, and it for a touchdown. And people were coming up to me like crazy, and I still hadn't seen it till later that night. And I'm like, all right, dude, like let's just go. And then I
Yeah.
saw it later, and it was, I mean, it was pretty cool because then at that point, uh, ESPN radio did call you to do a thing, and then all these local reporters start talking to you like, oh, who is this kid? And so I had 49
So
catches that year.
so now you're on the map. You guys went to what? The Fiesta Bowl, was it?
We went to the Fiesta Bowl that year. We won the Big East. Um, I had 9 catches in the Fiesta Bowl, and unfortunately, not a more competitive game. But you get to go to
So
BCS, and Eric Weddle. I mean, you play against guys that played in the league,
right.
and and you have some success. It's kind of like now you look back at it and you're like, gosh, if I just
So
didn't
now
do this.
is that the year though? After that year, Walt Harris leaves.
Yeah, that was his. He knew he was gone after the Utah game, and
So he
Wanstead I
left.
think was already in place.
Yeah, because Alex Smith was the QB for Utah. You guys played. So
Yeah,
now Walt Harris leaves and Wannstedt's there. So fast forward during the next season, what I mean, talk about how they kind of where that left you and go from there.
Yeah, so the whole offense changed. Matt Can or not Matt.
Matt Canada, he
Matt
needs to
Canada
get
came
fired
in. We
again.
scored no touchdowns in 2 years. No, but Matt Cavanaugh came in from the NFL. He was a Pitt quarterback, and they moved me from the X to the Z. For some people, they might know what that means. Some people don't, but you know what that means. And it was just a
Yeah.
whole different. Um,
X is usually the single receiver. You know, you get the one-on-one matchups.
yeah,
Z now you're,
you're.
you know, to the
It's a little more
field
work.
with the tight ends. You know,
So, um, and they've tried to replace me since day one, and I kept beating guys out. And um, even in the paper, they said they were trying to replace me in so many words, and I'm just like working my butt off, working my butt off. And then it's like as the season goes on, they slowly start to like wean me out of the offense, and now I'm like go from starting to now I'm the third guy. So if we go our three wide sets, I'm still that guy.
did you get hurt at some point that year?
I got banged up. Yeah, I hurt my ankle later in the year, but it was like once I got benched and they called me in and were like, "Hey, you're not going to be starting." Like that I got back into pills at that point and it got worse. More so just like not handling it the right way and not trying to talk through it with someone and just trying to deal with it on my own. And it's crazy. Had I never had I never done pills before, I wouldn't have turned to them at that point. But it was
Mm-hmm.
like I knew what they did beforehand, so it was like I'm dealing with this thing that to me is like catastrophic. I was in my hometown starting, and now like you're
You got
not,
benched. You
and
got
it's just like tough. It's tough to deal with. Like you get pulled for anything. You've had it happen in your career too. It's like,
right.
what the heck, man? Like,
Well, because we put sports, football, everything on a pedestal where that's who we are. You know, we are who we
mm-hmm.
are because we play football or we're good at football, and that's what the issue is now. Sometimes you look around, is people put their trust in that, and when things happen like that and you get benched, you go towards drugs because you're depressed, you're sad,
Yeah,
it's a tough time now. So you're on pills, you got benched. Like, how bad did it get at this point? I remember we were at home and you know, my dad told me this story where he'd be at home and he'd hear the front door open and no one would say anything. And then my dad would go back downstairs and he had money sitting on the counter right there and he'd go back down, the money was gone. And that's when we kind of were like,
yeah, dude. It was like, and I mean, I'm sure I did it. I don't even know what the heck was going on. But it was like even going home to my parents' house or anyone's house, it's like there was money sitting out. It was like unclaimed. I mean, I felt like, oh wow, look, somebody left this
so
around, and it was just obviously me in a tough way. In it was like a full time job trying to get enough money to not be sick.
hmm.
Like at this point, you're just not even trying to like get a feeling. You're just trying to be normal. And
so
go
so
ahead.
you go from, yeah, I mean, money's laying around, you're taking it. You're what, selling your brother's video games for money? Like, so you're trying to scrap for money any way you can to get pills. But now at this point, it's so bad. It's not even like you get a high, but you're like, I'm getting sick. Like when I'm not taking them, I'm sick.
Yeah. So like, imagine if you had the flu, right? So bad, or COVID, if you've had that in a bad experience, but your body's aching, you've got chills, cold sweats, hot flashes, all of this stuff, multiply it by like 1,000, and that's what withdrawal's like.
Mm.
And then it's like you get a pill or you get the drug that your body's craving, like you instantly get back to like a normal state. So
So
it was like
so
just
talk about like, yeah, how did this, because this is where I'm at, like with this method and just guys that have found a way to achieve. Like at one point though, like you probably knew in the back of your mind, like I wish I didn't wasn't doing this and I can't do it and how do I get over it and all that. And
Yeah.
but at the same time, the addiction is so strong, you don't care and you're gonna do it and keep doing it.
Yeah.
How did you get over that hump? Like, and how did you kind of achieve? Right? Achieving is not always just to make $1 million. Like achieving is
Yeah.
shit. My goal at this point is I need to get healthy and I need to get not be addicted anymore.
Yeah. So it lasted, that lasted for like a year, like a year and a half, say. Like, and throughout my junior season, all junior off season, throughout my senior season, which my senior season, like I didn't play at all. And um so I get to summer, that summer before like 2007, and I was trying to quit. We talked like early on. Somebody pulled a gun on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was
And
that
you're
point.
where downtown Pittsburgh, like
I'm in
in
like
Braddock.
like Homestead area, like by Kennywood.
Yeah, which
And
isn't the best area to be in at
no,
night.
so I go down there, and that didn't stop me. Like I went, like I said, somebody pulled a gun, and then it was like, oh well, I'm still sick. I still need to get this. Like I'm gonna take off running to go get it. But it was at that point that like something flashed or kicked in and was like, dude, you need to stop. And it
Mm.
was like I just started praying. I'm like, I just let me quit, please. Let me quit. And it things from that point on slowly started to get better. Like I tried to wean myself off. I was still doing stuff and still being like dumb and still doing drugs, but it was like I'm trying to wean myself off. And then something happened that kicked in with my neighbor who's a cop and pills, and he was ready to start an investigation. And that's when I was like, no, like I need help. And I
Mm.
told my parents, and it was like everybody knew. And like as soon as I talked to my parents, they were like, my mom was like, okay, I have this place and this place was lined up. Like, let's
Wow.
call. And it was like, and even that month or so leading into it, like I was starting to come around more. Like I was hanging out with Big Brew, your dad, all the time, and we
Mm-hmm.
were golfing a lot. And I was like trying to get back to my normal self. And then it was like the run in with the cop, and my parents forced me into rehab. So I went in.
That's just the power of addiction, but also the power of your pack, your family, your
Hmm.
friends, who you hang with. Like life's hard enough to navigate alone,
Yeah,
that you need the right people around you. You need people to be honest with you, to tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. And
yeah,
you got to the point with your local neighbors, with our family, to be like, you know what, like I'm weaning myself off this. But you probably felt like you are at that time for how bad it was. But for where you actually had to go, you needed the support of the family. And then
yeah,
what, you checked yourself into rehab?
yeah. And it's like it's funny too, thinking of like our family, right? Like big,
Big
just
Italian family,
everything.
spaghetti and meatballs. Yeah.
So the one day, I think you and your dad were in Tampa traveling somewhere, but everybody else came up to my mom's house, which is right up the block, and I told them, I'm like, hey, listen, I know I've been going through this, but I'm checking myself into a treatment center, and there's like a pause, like a strange pause, and then everybody, Aunt Judy, of course, stands up and starts like clapping as if I
Mm,
scored a touchdown.
mm,
And it was like, to me, getting like choked up saying this, but it's like, shows you how much love you have. And even like a week before that, a week before all this stuff happened, like TJ texted me at like 2:30 in the morning and was like, hey, I can't stop thinking about you. I'm not giving up on you. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know what to do. And you
That's
know, like certain things like that hit you at the exact right time. That's like, okay, I need this.
that's just. I mean, that's it gives me the chills. You know what I mean? It gets me choked up thinking of the support you had at that time. You
Yeah,
know, and our Aunt Judy just passed away this past year with cancer, and and that's what family's about. Friends are about, like your pack, like hanging with the right people. It's so important, and so no, I appreciate you telling your story because it's not easy, but you've been an advocate for a lot of guys out there, and what's three things you think you can leave someone there's probably a lot of kids out there
hmm,
that have this problem that
yeah,
they have no one to turn to talk to, and it in the moment it probably feels like it's never going to end. And then also on the other side, there's high school athletes trying to get a Division I scholarship, trying to get NIL money now. Like it's big,
yeah,
it's a business now. So you'll do anything you can. So what's three things you could share with them, and also maybe keys to success? And your success was overcoming it. How did you have the right state of mind to set the goal to get healthy, but also achieve it along the way?
yeah. So I would say the first thing for me, and this talks to like I'll like say sports, or but more importantly like getting clean, right? Like was my faith. Like I prayed like you wouldn't even believe. And I know
Mm.
that's not some people's thing, but like whatever it is, doesn't have to be like, you know, a certain religion or whatever, but
Yeah,
whoever it
yeah.
is you want to pray to, like just that was me. Like I needed that and I still need it to continue that, but it's like whatever, man, having a family, like
Mm.
financial stuff, you think of things and when things start to weigh on you, it's like when I pray, I feel better. So that like to me is number one. Two is having a plan. So like
Mm.
I went into treatment and they were like, you, in my head, I was thinking like, oh, I'll get out of treatment and I'll maybe drink a little bit or something. And then I learned about addiction and I'm like, oh, I probably can't do that. So I plan like what I'm going to do. And part goes back to faith. Like, why do you pray is like, if something bad happens, like Aunt Judy's thing, or something happens to your family, like how do you not go back to using drugs? You know,
Mm.
it's like I have a plan in this like mental process that I have that keeps me like grounded. That's not going to go back, and like how I'll deal with a certain situation that's bad that comes up in my life. Um, so that would be two, and then going to as far as like the drugs are concerned, kind of like a couple fold. So the people you hang out with and
Mm.
surround yourself with is so important. Um, and that's just that to me is for anything, right? Like if you want to be a successful business person, are you going to go hang out with four successful business people, or are you going to go hang out with four people that their businesses were closed? Like it's just
Mhm.
common sense in some ways. So I think keeping yourself in the right circle or right pack, like you say, um, and always have hope. Like never feel hopeless that
Mm.
like I can't get out of this. And you can. And I've seen people that were much worse off than me, and everybody's situation is so bad, but people that don't have families, don't have any support to go through, like I always say whether it's drugs, alcohol, like always get help. It's like very
Yeah.
small percentages of people that can do it on their own. Um and then as far as
It's
like sports are concerned, I would say dream big. Like, you know, but you got again, go back to having a plan and the work ethic behind it. Like you can't just say, "Oh, I want to play Division I football," and then like lift a couple, half hour with your team and do this. Like you got to put the work in to hone your skills
boy,
and set yourself
and I
apart.
I think that's a great point. I mean, you point out all the stuff like praying, having a plan, the people you surround yourself with, and then just finishing there with like the plan, having a playbook. You and I have done it our whole lives with football, basketball. Having that playbook to orchestrate and live by is so important. And but that's just so many good points, and your stories special. There's something too right there. I was gonna say the last thing you were talking about. I lost my train of thought.
Dream big.
Um,
I don't know.
No, putting in the work. A
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people do. They have a big dream, but I say this all the time. Like, it's okay to have a big dream or a big goal, but you have to ask yourself, are you willing to put in the work that it takes to achieve that goal? Like that. Now, if you're not willing to do the work, then find another goal, find another dream. But you
Yeah.
got to be willing to put in the work that it takes to achieve that goal. And I think that's the biggest misconception. Like, you got to put in the work, and then things
Hmm.
fall into place when you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Well,
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, my man. That's a
no.
great story, dude, honestly. And how many years has it been now? You're clean?
So 16 and a half, 17 will be next June. And you count it one day at a time, nothing. But it's like, what's cool too is Mia, my middle one, was born on my clean date.
Wow.
So like every
Dude,
year I sit there and I'm like, because you
such
think
a
of
celebration.
like, oh man, I didn't make it to the NFL, but it's like I have this family, and like 15 years ago, it's like I would have never imagined that I'd own a house. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like I'm like, dude, I own a house and a car. It's awesome.
Oh man, well, and you got three beautiful girls, and isn't that cool though? Like, you get to celebrate every year with her, and look at her knowing like you sacrificed to get where you're at now, to be with your family and provide and help them grow and help them on their journey, and that's 16 and a half years without even a sip of alcohol as well. Like,
Nothing.
we're talking about, you were addicted to drugs, heroin, but you're not even allowing your, like, without even alcohol. That's awesome. Like, bro, you should
Nothing.
be so proud, honestly.
And I'm still a fun guy.
You're
Still
still fun to hang out with sometimes, you know?
the fun guy on the beach.
You're the best, brother. No, it's a great
Oh,
story, and I hope it can help a few guys out there. So
appreciate it. Yeah,
thanks,
I'm
my man.
glad. I love what you're doing. So
I'll see you at Sunday dinner.
yeah, sounds good. Love you, bro.
Love you, my man. The Alpha 5 Method podcast is about hearing your story. I want to hear from individuals that have overcame adversity. I want to hear their path and what has helped them achieve greatness. Go to my website now, alpha5method.com, and join the pack.